The roguelike genre and its popularity with players has exploded over the past decade. With so much choice, and to help you work out which games we think are worthy of your time, we've pulled together, listed and ranked our favourite roguelike games you can play this early 2021. But before we get started, just a quick caveat. For this rundown, for right or wrong, we're showcasing a blend of roguelikes and roguelites all under one umbrella, and in so doing, we feel best placed to more easily share and pass on our all-time favourites. At number 10, and within a genre that prides itself in offering players a tough, challenging and darn right hard as nails gaming experience, Darkest Dungeon doesn't disappoint. Now this one is extremely challenging from the word go, and from a difficulty perspective, it's a classic of the genre. First out on PC in January of 2016, following a year-long period in early access, it's since been ported onto the PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and iOS platforms. Famed for its gothic art style and use of an affliction system, where your characters must deal with their stressors, such as, quite understandably given their circumstances, fear, paranoia, and other such things. These mental afflictions and their toll they take upon your adventurers is what gives Darkest Dungeon that little bit of a twist and difference that makes your time within the dungeon's turn-based combat that little bit extra special. With a successor coming out in early access at some point later in the year, if you're new to playing roguelikes, this would make an excellent introduction to the genre. At number 9, and a new entry for us within this early 2021 edition of the Best Roguelike Showcase, we have Downwell. Somehow, this passed us by even though it came out all the way back in October 2015, and we only really spent some quality time with it over the summer just gone by way of the Nintendo Switch. Turning the traditional 2D side-scrolling mechanic onto its side, in Downwell, well, you make your way, funnily enough, downwards into a well chock full of nasties, with only your reaction skills and a pair of trusty gun boots for help. Downwell is devilishly addictive, and at the start relatively simple, although this difficulty ranks up pretty quickly, with the gameplay being somewhat, let's say, intensive the deeper you delve. Ultimately though, it offers a truly rewarding experience as the unlocks tick over at a decent rate, which in turn keeps you pushing further and deeper into the well. Downwell can still be yours to play on pretty much anything you might have gaming-wise in your pocket or under your TV at home.
The past is dead, the masters are slain, yet the Gungeon remains.
Up next, and at number 8, one of the most recognisable games in this rundown. Enter the Gungeon first launched in April of 2016, and since has become available on most of the usual platforms. Unlike most games within this sub-genre of bullet hell dungeon crawlers, players have the option of selecting a player character from a selection of heroes from the get-go, each having their own strengths and weaknesses, which makes for a decent level of play choice from the outset. As for the levels, well, they are always constantly evolving, with the game continuing to add further difficulty and complexity the deeper you get. As could be expected given the name, much of the fun here comes from collecting and finding the weird and wonderful weaponry, which in turn has inspired a physical version of the game complete with a full encyclopedia of such armaments. Sadly, the recent sequel of sorts, Exit the Gungeon, well, it didn't quite live up to this game's legacy, so if you're new to all of this, would recommend at first sticking to the original. At number 7, and another new entry, Noita came out of early access October 15th of last year, and was something we had largely slept on until after its full launch. Here we have a 2D action-based game where you, the player, control a witch who is able to create and cast spells in order to defeat your enemies, which are all based on Finnish mythological creatures. The game takes the notion of procedural generation out there to the nth degree, with every pixel being physically simulated, which gives rise to some of the most beautiful and naturalistic displays so far seen within the pixel art and any roguelike game. While Noita does use permadeath, and like all of these games there's plenty of death on the cards whilst playing it, you are able to start afresh with everything you've learned from previous runs to help things become just that little bit easier. Noita is, so far as this video airs, out on PC and can be found via the Steam, GOG Humble and a select few other storefronts. At number 6, Into the Breach, since its launch, has become and remained one of our go-to tactical turn-based games on any platform, with the matches usually lasting between say 5 and 10 minutes, although sometimes longer. It's easy to pop in and out of and lends itself to short play sessions. All that being said, it's a game that also needs intense concentration, with it also being a fine stiff challenge. You can lose a battle in the first few moments if you're not careful. And yet when things do go correctly, the victories come with a fine sense of achievement. This remains one of the best of its kind, not just on the Switch where we've spent most of our time playing it, but also on any platform over the past 10 or so years. You can pick up Into the Breach for PC, Google Stadia, and the Nintendo Switch. At number 5, and yet another new entry, we have Risk of Rain 2, which came out of early access in the summer just gone, although it's equally been worthy of a place in this rundown ever since its initial early access launch. This 3D, third-person shooter has been quite the revelation, particularly when played within the squad-based co-op system, where the combat and roguelike mechanics really come into their own. The real treat here comes from unlocking and finding about the game's artifacts, which toggle various in-game modifications that can hugely change up the on-screen action. Risk of Rain 2 is a magical play, and given the ever-changing nature of the randomized stages and the developer's commitment to add yet more content as the game ages, Risk of Rain 2 may very well sit in this rundown for years to come. At number 4, and yet another game we didn't play too much or pay too much attention when it first came out of early access in late January of 2019. A viewer actually here on the channel had asked us via Twitter why we hadn't covered it, so we decided to do so, and we're delighted we did. In this game, you go about moving up a tower while killing off various monsters in what is one of the best card deck building games of this current, or last shall we say, generation. You begin with a small deck, and as you build upon it, you expand and win, which in turn makes you more powerful. Should you lose a battle, however, well, it's back to the bottom of the tower for you to start all over. It is beautifully addictive, with each playthrough offering something different and affording you the chance to adapt and build upon your battle strategies. In a single word, well, a couple of words, is a deck building roguelike triumph. At number 3, and the highest new entry within this early 2021 roguelike countdown, we have Spelunky 2, which, if we're honest, didn't initially grab us as much as it might. Released towards the middle of September last year onto PlayStation and a few weeks later onto PC, it was, very much for us at least, a slow burner, before really coming into its own towards the end of the year. Featuring the daughter of the first game's central character, there's no hand-holding here, and you get straight into the action, and as could be expected, things are fast and frantic and downright difficult from the very beginning. Like its predecessor, you're tasked with getting your way across a procedurally generated map, with you needing to fend off and dodge various crafty critters and environmental issues. It rewards a deft touch, and you have to go into this knowing you do need a high degree of precision or frustration will come thick and fast. We think this is where our initial, let's call it frustration, because that's what it was, with the game first came from. It's just not as accessible as others, which took time to get used to and get over. We're glad we persisted though with Spelunky 2, and while we've still yet to see the end credits, that's something we're still hoping to make amends for and duly savour. At number 2, and slipping one place from last year's rundown, we have Dead Cells. This first came out in the summer of 2018, and we instantly fell head over heels for it, and called it after many hundreds of playtime our most loved indie game ever made. It is utterly brutal, particularly at the start when you begin with limited powers and face what are over the odds, and those odds are tremendous. You will die over and over, and we can totally see why so many people have told us in the years since this came out they ditched it before really getting going. If that's you, well, we do urge you to keep at it, as things do and will get better if you give it the time, and if you do, the rewards and sense of achievement and accomplishments are tremendous. Since this first launched, the developers have steadily added to the game with additional DLCs. Some have been free, others needed additional purchases, with the most recent edition expected to launch any day as this video airs. Dead Cells is brilliant, and so far in all of the years we've been playing, we've only liked one other game just that little bit more. At the number 1 slot, and for us here at Get Indie Gaming, the most enjoyable game of any within the roguelike genre, we have Hades, which came out this past September 2020. Hades is so very close to perfection, and as an overall package, builds upon the previous games from developer Supergiant games such as Spire, Bastion, and Transistor, with it taking all of their best bits and mashing them together, while adding some of the most entertaining and tightest story-driven combat ever made. We can't overstate how lovely Hades is to play with, most of this again coming from how utterly fantastic the combat can be, particularly when you've played for long enough to have leveled up so you're better equipped to dish out the good news to those looking to put a stop to your mission of escaping the underworld. That said, unlike so many others within this genre, especially Dead Cells, you don't begin Hades as a weak and weary piece of cannon fodder. You can get cracking from the outset and make a fairly decent way through the initial stages of the game, which makes Hades feel far more accessible early doors than nearly anything else in this rundown. The accessibility is further in evidence, with this game having a mode in which you can become progressively more resistant to damage the more you die, which offers players with, let's say, less than godlike reaction skills, or those who, like us at times, just want to focus on the story, an avenue with which to further enjoy the game. As for the story, yet again, it's this that also kept us coming back to it time and time again, with the superb writing and associated voice acting, particularly those linked to the main protagonist and Hades, his father, being, well, exquisite. It's just one of those games, one of those overall experiences that to play and even think about brings a broad smile to our small team here at Get Indie Gaming. We adore it, and while we think it's the greatest roguelike you can play here in 2021, we also think it's the greatest indie game ever made. So there we go, with Hades wrapping up our early 2021 rundown of the best roguelikes you can play right now. Do let us know your favourites by dropping us a note down in the comments. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe if you've yet to do so, as we close in on the magical 100,000 subscriber milestone. Many thanks as always for your support, and we'll see you all here again soon for another indie game video.